Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming on such a wintry night. We've had two very successful panels, which I'll refer to in a minute. My name is Kevin Clements. I'm the director of the Toda Peace Institute and professor of Peace and Conflict Studies at University of Otago in New Zealand. And we have a very, very distinguished panel to talk with you tonight about some of the issues that were raised over the course of the last nearly 4 hours. We have, first of all, Ambassador Joseph Yun, a Special Representative for North Korean Policy from the US Department of State, Professor Kioi Professor of the University of Tokyo, Professor Ding-Li Shen, Associate Dean of the Institute of National Studies at Fudan University, and a member of the Eminent Persons Group for Substantive Advancement of Nuclear Disarmament here in Japan, and Dr. Yun-Sun, Senior Associate at the Stimson Center. These people have kindly agreed to give their time and to answer any of the questions you may have. We scheduled this press conference for an hour, but some of our panelists probably need to go within half an hour, so we want to see if we can make sure that we get as many questions in as possible. Just to give those of you who weren't here some idea of the kinds of discussions we had earlier on, we had a first panel that was focusing on tensions and challenges in Northeast Asia generally, and how to respond to those creatively and non-violently. In particular, we looked at how to improve relationships between China and Japan, which were considered to be a major bilateral relationship, which was critical to many of the other issues that were on the table. We looked at what kinds of regional security architecture might be necessary for managing disputes non-violently in the region. And we focused attention on how to build trust and respect between China and Japan, Japan and Korea, and between North and South Korea. And in the last panel, we've had a major focus on North Korean nuclear threat and how to respond to that creatively and, again, non-violently and without a military strike. And looked at a whole range of different options that were on the table there in terms of dealing with, boosting confidence between North and South Korea, between North Korea and the United States, how to facilitate constructive negotiations between Japan, the US, and North Korea, and ways in which all of the countries of Northeast Asia can begin working towards creating an environment within which the challenges facing the region posed by North Korea can be dealt with creatively and imaginatively. So it's open for questions now. I would simply suggest that when you ask a question, you just indicate which news agency you're from or which company you're with, and then we can go further.
Martin Colling with the German financial daily Handelsblatt. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the event itself. My question is basically a little bit related to the Olympics. Now everybody is talking about maybe some deconflicting, or whatever you want to call it, basically less tensions. Maybe this is a start for negotiations. But many analysts and experts are skeptical. And my question, whether this basically leads to a real process, long-lasting process. And my question is a little bit related to the question, what does North Korea want? When I look at North Korea, I basically see two things. There's a strategic, I might say a strategic goal, many people mention, which is North Korea wants basically to drive the United States off the Korean Peninsula, and then there's a tactical goal with this deterrence. And in the discussions, both are, many people emphasize one time the one question and the other time the other intention. And for me this is often confused. And I wonder, what do you think is the real intention? What are the strategic goals of North Korea with its nuclear weapon? And what are the tactical goals of North Korea?
Thank you very much, Kevin. I think that's probably a question for North Korea, not for us, right? What does North Korea want? Have you thought about asking the North Koreans?
I think that you must have also an idea when you analyze this, what do you think they want? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a government official. I don't really get involved into answering for other people. But let me tell you what the North Koreans have said to me, what they want. They want security, they want economic prosperity, and so on. So I think, I think to me, you take an answer when they give it to you, and so certainly when I have communicated with them, their main objection to what they call was U.S. hostile policies. So this was an occasion for me to engage them to explain our position. Our position has consistently been that denuclearization of their country is a problem. Their nuclear weapons is a problem. Their missile delivery system is a problem. So that's been our conversation so far. Thanks.
Dingmi, do you want to make a comment?
I think I can speak for North Korea. They want nuclear weapons strategically, not tactically. Tactically, you can adapt it if you get some good return. Nothing can trade off nuclear weapons. They are hard developing. This is my understanding. Meantime, they want to have economic prosperity. And they want to have everything. They don't want to have one out of two. They want to have two out of two. So better to have Olympic every day. Therefore, U.S. would compromise its joint military exercise. U.S. would not to have exercise. So they really love Olympics.
Hello, Motoko Rich with the New York Times, Ambassador Yun. Can you talk about whether or not the Trump administration is close to mounting a preventive strike, and if not, how close are they?
Well, thank you very much. Our policy is very much for peaceful resolution of the North Korean nuclear crisis. We've said it over and over again. What we want to see is a dialogue. Our policy is based on putting on pressure as well as leaving the door open for a dialogue. And I think that has been enunciated very clearly by Secretary Tillerson. Having said that, of course, we also have said, and it is very consistent, that all options are on the table. And by all options, I think you have to say it has to include military options. But again, I would like to caution you that I don't believe we are close to it. And so I think we are, certainly we want to see the negotiations. We want to have credible negotiations. I do believe South Korea and North Korea now are beginning in a dialogue. We have, of course, agreed to put off joint exercise together with the Koreans by a month. And so I think everyone wants to give diplomacy a good run. So I think that's where we are. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm NHK from Hiroko Matsuzaki. I have two questions, and you say that 2つ質問があります。最終、just for...
Well, thank you very much. Your question was, what kind of goal, what kind of dialogue do we see? I think it's very hard to say at this point what kind of dialogue there might be. We don't have a dialogue. And we haven't really decided, or we haven't even engaged very much. That's not to say we don't have communications with North Korea. We do have communications with North Korea. So I think really not just us, but there are other relevant parties. Japan is certainly one of them. South Korea is another one. China is another one. Russia is another one. So it's really not us only, but we have to involve regional and we have to involve international community. I think over the past year or so, you have seen a very, very clear stance and commitment by the international community. You have seen a number of UN Security Council resolutions. We have also seen the meeting in Vancouver that was hosted by Canadians and us about 3 weeks ago. So this is a very strong statement by international community that North Korea should and has to denuclearize. So I do believe what kind of dialogue? The dialogue has to be based on this commitment by the international community, and it has to be about ultimately a dialogue that will lead to denuclearization.
Well, China may want to comment on why China's position.
We know this is a complex issue, and both sides, US, South Korea, and North Korea, could contribute to the escalation. What we need to do is to promote a long-term objective of peacefully resolving North Korean nuclear issue by abandoning it. But incrementally, in short term, medium term, both sides should act in a way to de-escalate and to reduce the intensity of this conflict. Therefore, to exercise less frequently with lesser intensity, or not to have exercise for a while is our hope. Meantime, North Korea should refrain from conducting more tests. These are short term, but if we extend the short term for a longer time, eventually we would have a virtual kind of a moratorium. And that could hopefully move toward eventual nuclear disarmament. So each side should help to contribute. Suspension for suspension is a way to reduce the tension. It's not a way to immediately abandon the problem, but to make the issue a lesser issue.
Hello, my name is James Sims with Forbes. I have just a couple of questions. I mean, one is regarding something that's been discussed regarding security guarantees for North Korea provided maybe by China and Russia. I know on the Lawfare blog there was actually one talking about possible nuclear umbrella provided by China and Russia for North Korea to ensure the regime, once an agreement was reached.
And then the issue about security guarantee, you want to Yunsun will answer something on
So the issue of the security guarantee raises two questions. The first one is, will China do it? China didn't do it before, so what are the considerations and what are the factors that will make us believe that China will do it today? And if we look at the diplomacy of Xi Jinping, although he takes pride in the big power diplomacy, I have seen no indication that China is willing to assume that role. And the other consideration we need to make is whether North Korea will embrace such an arrangement. We know that the nuclear weapons now have been written into their constitution. It's a matter of regime legitimacy, it's a matter of national pride, and they are also very close to achieve the credible ICBM capability. So for them to give it up now seems improbable.
I mean, I would not characterize it exactly like you did. I think we believe that China has implemented UN Security Council resolutions. And of course, in terms of sanctions, there are a number of things that are going on, including smuggling, including that trade that the authorities don't know about. So I think what we would hope every country will do is, try again to implement sanctions as fully as possible.
I'm Moe from TBS. So with Mr. Yoon said, two Koreas having dialogue is important. So I think now North Korea is having dialogue with South Korea, but some said that maybe after Olympics, North Korea will not like a dialogue with South Korea. but I think it's important to have two Koreas keep in dialogue so that maybe someday they will have discussion about denuclearization. So do you have any idea like how to keep North Korea coming to have talk with North Korea, or maybe like US or Japan?
That's a pretty tough question. I think as a diplomat, we want to see dialogues. I think that's our goal. I believe in dialogues. So I do hope that that this is North Korea opening a dialogue with South Korea is a trend of things to come, and that's my hope.
Other questions? Yes, New York Times again.
Can you tell me how non-negotiable denuclearization is to even start talks? And when you talk about the various levels of diplomacy, I take your point, but I'm really talking about direct engagement and talks. How non-negotiable is denuclearization? Does that have to be on the table in order to start talks?
I think we should all face the reality, which is that these talks, if there are engagement and talks with North Korea, they have to be about denuclearization. They have to be about steps that North Korea will take towards denuclearization. And I think that is the basis of any real engagement with North Korea. Thank you very much. I think my boss, Secretary Tillerson, has said on a number of occasions that North Korea stopping missile and nuclear tests would be a great first step. I don't think it's so important, 60 days, 90 days, 30 days, or whatever. I think the important thing is, diplomacy is not conducted with smoke signals. They have to tell us that they're doing it. So for them to go to a period of time without telling us, and they don't do tests, I think that's fairly meaningless unless you tell us. I think I've told you that communications channels are open, so there is no problem in telling us their intent, and so I think that's the key.
Just to follow up again, in terms of sort of the longer term issues, obviously, at the symposium today, it seems like this is going to be a very long term, maybe generational process. But in the final analysis, I mean, security seems to be the big issue for North Korea, ensuring the regime and maybe possible succession to the fourth generation, fifth generation, whatever. Just Ambassador Yoon, I mean, would some sort of security guarantee provided by other countries, would that be something that would be on the table in the longer term?
Thank you. I think in the longer term, anything is on the table. I mean, I cannot imagine. I mean, for example, if you look at the six-party talks agreement, I think one of the conditions there was kind of no first strike kind of security guarantee. So this has, there has been security guarantee in that space for six-party talks, and there was similar language in agreed framework. So in the long term, I think that would all come into play.
Thank you very much. My name is Kumiko Haga, and I very much love to Ambassador Yoon's opinion and dialogue, but in my opinion, I think the situation is more pessimistic. Perhaps war will be happen in East Asia. Because 5 or 6 years later, China will surpass the United States of America. So before that, perhaps in East Asia, there is a war happen by accident. All of the wars start by accident or by chance. So World War First and World War Second also started by accident. So my opinion, I'd like to ask two Chinese, Yoon Sun and Chin, Professor Chin, how to stop, how to manage to stop such a limited war in East Asia, and it is very welcome by the United States or even in Europe as well, because limited East Asian war will stop the Asian development and the Asian prosperity and continue the US leadership in the world. So that's why I'd like to ask you how to make the continuity of the prosperity in East Asia, how to make the institutionalization by ourselves to stay peace and security. Thank you.
Okay, Yunsun, you want to respond to them?
Sure, I think the answer depends on who you ask. If you ask, for example, the Chinese PLA, they're going to say we also follow basically the doctrine of peace through strength. No country will want to fight China if they know that they're not going to win. So, which is why that China keeps its military modernization. But I think on the practical level, it's all about communications channels. And I would say that between US and China, for example, in the case of South China Sea, there has been mechanisms established about the rules of engagement or rules of encounter between the two navies and the air forces. And there are such channels of communication.
I would add something to Ms. Sun. At the basic level, in Western Pacific, China and US worked out how the military equipment, flying objects, ships should meet in courtesy. They have not worked out how much distance they should keep. That's something that the incident at sea, that Soviet Union and the US used to work out. And Soviet Union and the US military aircraft meet probably 200 times a month, zero incident. China US already incident in 2001. So we should move toward a better system in which even the slightest misunderstanding and chance will not escalate. China and US have not been there yet, but should move toward this direction because it's a real concern. Secondly, as Ms. Sun has mentioned, security, peace through strength. China tried to modernize its system and to make increasingly transparency to the world, so others would respect China properly. So the US understand China a lot, and US usually post review and US various government document would write in a way that China is catching up, but has not surpassed that of the US. So this is a way that the US would be more cautious. US has less freedom of action. That does not mean China would abuse its freedom of action. China-US major problem is Taiwan. But we still work it out, 3 communique. And the US added, the Congress added Taiwan Relation Act. And despite our unpleasantness of this, China-US have been peacefully coexisting for the past 4 decades. And hopefully this will continue. So these are the tough part. Then we have lots of softer part, mutual investment and trading, people-to-people communication. Increasingly less misunderstanding of the US. And the US would understand China more. US say that China has probably sabotaged the US intelligence network in China. Why US would have a network to understand China? By defeating US network, US may be less able to understand China. But China may send its own spies into US, better to understand US. This kind of positive and negative engagement for one purpose, to avoid war.
One last question, because we need to keep faith. I think we should go to our colleague from Singapore, because we've only asked one.
To the point about the follow mechanism, can you comment on China-Japan ties with regard to Singapore, Kioi Islands, and how both countries should manage this?
When John Ray was alive, he made a kind of tacit understanding with the then Japanese government. keeping status quo. China says it's mine, but I don't send my people to the place. Japan says it's Japan, but Japan refrained from acting in this place which Japan controlled. This has been the case from 1972 to 2010, almost 40 years. But then more and more Chinese fishermen would be there incidentally, and some of them would have some collision with Japanese marine, Coast Guard. That created a problem. If you don't interact, no problem. With more interaction, some negative problem. But still, when Jiabao and then his counterpart in Japan worked out some recipe, we got our men detained back, possibly with Americans' assistance. America does not want China and Japan to have a problem, and that made the captain of Japanese ship angry. He personally released the data, which made the Japanese viewer unhappy. We found our way. So eventually, China-Japan created a new institution that in East China Sea house two countries, their warship and their Coast Guard and their military equipment should meet in courtesy, should avoid engagement, should disengage rather than engage. This kind of China-Japan security and confidence building measure has been built in order to fill the void, to make the two countries have hopefully zero chance to have conflict.
Good, thank you. On behalf of everybody there, I'd just like to thank all of our panelists for their frank and free answers to your questions. Thank you, Akio, you didn't get much of a word in. Thank you, Joe, for getting many words in. Thank you, Dingli and Yun-Sun, for giving us Chinese perspectives. Thank you all.